Good evening and welcome to the Velocity of Now with me, your host Thomas Sheridan on the Reality Bytes radio network. That's Reality Bytes with a BYTES.com, and welcome to the Velocity of Now. Here it is, it's Wednesday, well it's actually Thursday now, it's still Wednesday. Wednesday the 6th of May, Jesus, the year is flying by, 2015, and my name is Thomas Sheridan, as I said, and my website is www.thomassheridanarts.com, and, there's loads on there, lots of new stuff this week, because, by Jesus, has it been an eventful week, and we're going to be talking about that tonight. And if you didn't get an education this week in how the system functions, in how the true shilling is done, in how the true controlled opposition is played, then there's absolutely no hope for you as a human being. None whatsoever. None at all. Because there's no way you could actually claim to be awake, switched on, clued in, and still be the same person today that you were before Walpurgis, where a huge change happened in the consciousness of this so-called awakening movement, and particularly in the UK, when the remarkably mundane and spectacular, non-audible flatulent, but massively consciousness flatulent Russell Brand, after nearly 2 years of telling his followers, do not vote. There's no distinguishable difference between the two mainstream parties. They're all the fucking time. Well, he didn't say that. I said that. And what happened? He turned around first on Walpurgis. It couldn't have been more poetic. Told you to vote for the Greens in Brighton, and then he performed what the intelligence services called a spectacular, and by God it was a spectacular, that basically validated me as, without a doubt, the premier intelligent voice of this entire alternative community, because I made the greatest prediction ever. My head is so big, you're going to call me a narcissistic twat. I don't care. Allow me to bask in the moment of my glory, when immediately after his Newsnight performance in 2013, I came out and said he was talking bollocks, and it's all about getting people back into the Labour Party. And it happened and unfolded just like I predicted. I wasn't a lunatic hovering around a Ouija board squealing, "My queen! My queen!" while some nicotine-encrusted oaf moved the planchette, or whatever that fucking thing is called, around the board to make predictions. I didn't have a vision in a hotel of voices telling me I was a special person and in the future No, none of that happened. What happened was I looked at reality and I deciphered reality. Something that is still an enormous, gigantic, massive, incredible, and insurmountable issue for so many people who still call themselves awake. You study nothing, because unfortunately the so-called awakening movement, 80% of it began with reading UFO books. The other 10% began in churches, and 10% of them were actually normal people who clicked on. The rest of you were all lizard-locked by the Lizard King himself, and Alex told you for war, Illuminati symbol, and you haven't learned dick. You haven't learned dick. You don't know how to observe. So, what's the main thing that causes an insurgency to happen? Intelligence gathering. You observe the enemy, like I have, like some other people have, like people like Tom Secker has done that. People like that. You observe the enemy. James Corbett's another one. And there's quite a few others. And then you develop intelligence gathering. I don't mean like intelligence IQ. I mean information gathering. And you realize that they repeat the same patterns over and over again. And that's why the people who immediately saw that Russell Brand was full of crap were divided into two camps. Women who find him repulsive, which don't really count because that's basically it's purely a superficial judgment, and then men and women who know exactly how the system works. And we're going to be talking about how it really works tonight and what the real shills are. And all you muppets online are going, he's a shill because he doesn't believe the earth is flat. Oh, the earth is flat, so he's a shill. Shill psychopath, doesn't believe the earth is flat. We're going to talk about how it's really done and why there's no hope for an awakening, because it's not going to happen. Like I said, anyone who stands on a stage today and goes, there's going to be a great awakening of unconditional love, they really need to be taken out into it, and sold, sold as fertilizer at this point, because that's basically what they are. So, we're probably going to have an extra long show tonight because there's so much to talk about and so many things to explore. And Fecca, I feel like talking a little longer tonight, and I'm sure most of you won't mind. Now, so let's talk about a few things this week. What happened this week? Well, I had a cold. That's one thing. I got drunk on Sunday. That's another. And well, that's basically it. And in between that, I did a bit of research, a bit of working. But I have to say that I was amazed with the Russell Brand turnaround. It happened the way it did. I really did initially. Now, I knew the end game was always to get Labour voters back. I always knew that was the end game from the start, because he was basically spinning a Labour manifesto on that Newsnight episode with what's his name? I can't remember the dickhead's name right now. And another Fabian public school twat on the BBC, and it was pure Labour. It was pure Labour. Now, it was confirmed to me. I thought it was going to be a new left-wing party was going to be created, and that would be the conduit back into the Labour Party. So initially, I thought there'd be a purple pill party would be created. He would kind of lead it. They would probably go into a coalition government with Labour, and then at the end of the 4 years, just be basically merged into Labour. In the same way, the Irish Green Party was the same kind of psyop, and it basically merged back into Fianna Fáil, the largest party in the country, because it was basically just created for that purpose. Now, when he did this originally back in October 2013, and I wrote that, there was a massive backlash, and I took some incredible personal abuse, and being the not so gentleman I am, I actually held back and restrained, not because I was so offended by what was being said to me, but mainly because I could not believe the absolute stupidity that I was being subjected to. The absolute mindlessness. And it's still going on. It is still going on. They're still... You see, I'm not kidding you. I posted this too. I think it was the Ian Crane Humanity versus Insanity group. Hello, guys, if you're listening over there. And... There was chaps on there who were saying, I disagree, Russell is wonderful, and then going back and you look at their home page and they're actually typed in between all these other posts about how, the Illuminati are controlling us, how this, that and the other, how we're being manipulated, how we must seek truth. Big capital letters and exclamations on the end. Russell says we must vote Labour. And then the Russell Brand video underneath it. You just couldn't make this up. You just couldn't even begin to make it up. Now, when that first happened, we're going to be talking about what brought people to that level, even intelligent people, because we can all be made stupid. We can be made stupid by love. We can also be made stupid by disappointment. And Russell Brand was, shall we say, the end game in a series of deliberate engineered false hopes and disappointments that made people believe he was their last option. And we're going to talk about that in a while. But anyway, when I first came out back in October 2013 and talked about Russell Brand and all this kind of stuff, that I believe that he was really only ultimately about getting people back into the Labour Party again, I suddenly had lots of friends appear on my Facebook page, and they were the usual kind of Labour Party armchair socialist jizzbags, college professors, college political students, the usual mindless scum, mindless brain-dead following scum that get involved in these kinds of mainstream political parties. And they were coming on my Facebook page and dropping all these nauseating, along with the New Agers, who I think half of them are probably back in psychiatric hospitals by now, along with the New Agers. Oh, no, and the ones that aren't are currently into natural law, because we're not stupid anymore. We don't follow anybody anymore. We're not gullible. We're not gullible. We're into natural law, and you better be into natural law too. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, they were coming on and dropping these passive-aggressive remarks like, what do you offer other than telling everyone else, calling everyone around you a psychopath, which is pretty disgusting, because compared to a particular cult out there masquerading as an alternative news, a debt cult, I might add, masquerading as an alternative, unbiased news source, who call everybody a psychopath that disagrees with them, along with an affiliated recovery, and I say that in quotation marks, forum, who are basically a data and information sharing operation that works with them, who do the same to anyone who disagrees with them is likewise declared a psychopath. I call very, very few people a psychopath, because I have what all those people don't have, and that's human decency. I actually allow a person to be a human being first, and then I will not call them a name like that unless they've demonstrated, and I've known them, powerful, life-destroying behavior over years and years and years against other people for their own benefit. I don't do it for that reason. So I'm not like that. So this is the kind of scumbag things. And then you'd have some other little dirtbag lefty thumbing it up who wouldn't leave any other comment on my thing. And I just want to say something to all of you from right now. Now, this is not based on hubris. It's not based on any kind of, need to go, nah. It's not based on any kind of, shall we say, one-upmanship. But let me please give you, from the bottom of my heart, a hearty fuck you all right now, because you are absolute dicks, and you have portrayed yourself as absolute dicks. And you're still dicks if you're following Russell Brand, which I know most of you are, because Russell says we should vote. Now, why did you become a dick? Why did you become a knobhead? Okay, let's say that might as well have been the because this is ultimately what a cult member is, and that's what you all are. The title of this program tonight could easily be, "How did you become a feckin' knobhead?" Okay, let's take it from there. How did you become a feckin' knobhead? Okay, that you actually fell for Russell Brand or joined a flying saucer cult or something else. How did you become a knobhead? Well, we'll start with the ones who voted for Russell Brand. It's not your fault necessarily that you're a knobhead, okay? But you are a knobhead. And I want to rehabilitate you, if I can, away from being a knobhead. I really, really do. Now, the knobhead factor, how did it develop in the particular case of... Now, let's forget about people who are members of Labour Party and mainstream political parties and the SWP and all those nut jobs. They're all waste of space. They're useless. We can't do anything with them. Let's talk about the people who came through the so-called awakened community and then they've gone, Russell's going to save us. Russell's going to save us. He's 9, 11, 12, he likes David. David says you ripped us. Those guys, how did David, well, apart from the obvious ones who were knobheads, but the ones that I thought actually had an element of intelligence, well, what brought them to that point of adoring and worshipping Russell Brand is the same thing that brings a cult member to the point where they can find no fault in the cult leader. And no matter what the cult leader does and says, they will always defend them. These things don't happen overnight. These things are gradual. And what basically they're about is a kind of a consecutive, shall we say, centrifugal destruction of the person's psyche in order to make them believe that they're in their last chance saloon. And everything depends on that. Now, talk about the waking people, right? They were going, die with the whip joints, die with the whip joints. Right, that was going on for years. And the whip joints, but, all they did was by telling everybody that that they were all reptiles was they isolate them from themselves, from their family. And then you have the other ones who were on the what's his name? I got slagged for making fun of him this week. Alex Jones' path, and they were going, it's the New World Order's coming, yeah. The New World. I got slagged this week for someone I was actually berated and called that me putting down Alex Jones in that voice, and I wasn't putting him down. I was parodying. Was sorry, I'm full of antihistamine, so forgive me, I'm a bit drowsy. I wasn't. This is satire. I do the Alex Jones voice all the time. It's fun. Like when I'm in the restaurant, I'm looking at the menu. Soup of the day. It's the New World Order. Soup of the day in the restaurant. What does the New World Order bring us in the soup of the day? Pumpkin and coriander. 2 vegetarian, 2 vegan. Might be GMO. What about seafood chowder? No, nothing from the sea because Fukushima, New World Order. The criminals in charge, they've cabals, they're coming from FEMA camps. I think I'll go for the beef consomme. Yeah, beef is Texas in 1776. Yeah, New World Order, baby. I sound like I'm in a porn flick, actually. Then, don't I? The Alex Jones sex hotline. Meep 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 meep. Hello and welcome to the Alex Jones sex hotline. Yeah, 25 cents for the first 15 minutes, $75 for the next 15 minutes after that and beyond. What would you like to talk about today? FEMA camps, New World Order, GMOs, or 1776 is the answer to 1984, baby. I'm actually getting turned on here. Anyway, imagine Alex Jones doing like audiobooks, Victorian romance, smutty Victorian novels. Lord Shagworthy, representative of the New World Order on the Rumpole estate, entered into the stables and found the stable girl bereft of her corset. Anyway, yeah, so they came from me to that, or, New World Order, Illuminati. They came from those sides, right? And also there would have been smatterings of New Age types came along as well. And then the whole thing was building up to 2012. Woo, woo, woo! 2012, they had to build their expectations up to that. Hello, I'm Terence McKenna, and even though people could say that I'm a genius and I talk about mushrooms, people also forget that I was talking about 2012 bullshit as well. Yes, people forget that. I was part of that whole 2012 bullshit. They conveniently forget that I was working on a computer program that was going to make 2012 happen, even though it didn't happen. You're still talking about me as I'm a fucking genius. Anyway, so they came through these paths, right? Now, before 2012, the big 2012 letdown, they had the Occupy thing. Now, the Occupy thing was about the most perfect example of a white bread revolution you could possibly concoct, right? But it was so perfectly engineered. To see all these privileged white kids all over the world walking down the streets in their latest fashions, their latest handheld devices, their their Starbucks coffee and going, we gotta have change, we gotta have change, we have gotta change. Now where that came from initially was that they all were voting for Obama, and Obama went, change, I'm gonna change, yeah, change, motherfucker, yeah, change, yeah. I don't mean of course, Mr. President, yeah, but I like Errol Brown of Hot Chocolate, who died today, better than you. And he goes, now change is a word that means nothing, okay? Like hope is a word that means nothing. Change could be something worse. So they all wanted change, change, like zombies, you know that, like George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, change, change, like brains, change, right? And so they got change. Things got fucking worse, okay? And so this might be my last show tonight. I'll probably be banned off the air tonight, but let's go out with a bang. So things got worse. He wasn't this sainted being on gossamer wings who fluttered down from heaven to make everything the Bushes did right again. No, he just he took what they did and made it worse. Stage, stage, and so that was that. So nothing happened. So they're all walking up and down the Wall Street. It starts off in London, and they have the human microphones. The human microphones were my favourite. You know, we are here to protest American sanctions against Nicaragua. American sanctions against Nicaragua. As an expression of our individuality. Remember that? Look those things up, human microphones at Occupy. It summed up Occupy perfectly. These mindless drones who didn't even know what they were marching for. Hey, but that was the point. That was the point of Occupy. That was the point of it. So it was also a fantastic data gathering operation for the globalists, because they knew this awakening was, whatever you want to call this political consciousness awakening, was happening. They needed to get names, babies. You know, remember, like, what's her name? Eddie in Absolutely Fabulous. Names, darling, names, darlings. That's how they were at the Pentagon and at Thames House for MI5. They needed to get names, darling, names. So they invented Occupy, and when you went down to any of the Occupy meetings, there was all these people walking around with petitions to sign, where you signed your name, address, your phone number, and your email. Names, darling, names, darling. Here you go, Mr. Pentagon. Here you go, Mr. Thames House. And so that was a big part of it, was gathering the names of how, gauging, data mining, finding out just how, is there a potential for a real wake-up here, as well as taking them and manipulating it. I love the Wall Street Occupy, walking around these signs that were clearly made by, they were so professionally done, they were clearly made by Madison Avenue ad agency that were saying things like, climate change now, and if the climate was a bank, it'd be saved by now. And it was all globalist statements all put on these big signs and handed to Occupy protesters, and then so they get their photographs in the New York Times and all this kind of thing. Change, change. Anyway, and so on top of that, it was also a big medical testing ground as well. We're going to have an extra long show tonight, so don't worry, I'm not going to run the whole show. An extra, a medical, sort of like a biological weapons. See, people think that bioweapons are things like, chemical warfare, being injected. Well, let me tell you what the bioweapons were at Occupy. Vegan kitchens. Vegan slop. Vegan slop without an ounce of B12 vitamins in it. So you start becoming psychotic. This is why when people go into Irish psychiatric hospitals now suffering from schizophrenia or psychosis, one of the first questions they ask them, are you a vegan or a vegetarian? If they say yes, they give them a shot of B12. The psychosis and schizophrenia, instantly stops and they're discharged that night. So they're all in their vegan slop, right? So they're change! Occupy, and so they're all drool coming out of their mouths, and so they're all easily controlled and manipulated. And plus, on top of that, they're having psychotic episodes and all this kind of thing. I'm oppressed. I'm oppressed. The battery on my iPod doesn't work so good. I'm a victim of the globalists. My new chinos, it said that they're made in China. Well, that's crap, right? So the Occupy bullshit went through, was the first part. That was the first part. And so, that caused, that nothing happened. They all walking down the street. Michael Moore, he's a real man of the revolution. He's here today. Susan Sarandon, Hollywood people to save us. Give me some more of that vegan slop. And so, and lattes in Starbucks have absolutely no milk in them. Or it's not even milk anymore. So no protein of any kind of it. So it's like your latte and your double latte, which are your shitty marshmallows and all of the crap inside it, and your corn syrup sweetener, and then your vegan slop food, change, this kind of thing, right? And so that was the first crash. Nothing happened. So they're all like, "Hey, what happened to Occupy? What? We were going to change the world. All the newspapers said we were going to. What happened?" Well, there's only one thing you do to a person in a cult. When you build up their expectations to the first level, then you take it away from them. You'll have two phenomena will happen. Some people will say, "Feck this, it's all bollocks. I'm going to go back to, getting prostitutes and coke. Feck this, it's a load of bollocks. I'm going to go back to watching the football on TV." Or what they really want to do is get the ones who won't do that and want to fix the next thing. They want to fix the next thing. So what was the next thing? 2012. 2012, we're all going to have an ascension. Or, the Mayan calendar, a bleeding rock with a few drawings on it. And the Mayan calendar says, you remember the videos? As if they, it's got sacred geometry. Hey, I'm not seeing Harriman, and I got sacred geometry and something to do with Tesla, and you think I'm a genius because of it. You haven't got a clue what I'm fucking talking about. Well, the same thing, too, with the 2012 thing. A bleeding rock, a circle of fucking rock from Mexico with a few scribbles, few carved, very nice, actually attractive, and they're all thinking it's a clock to tell you that's the end of the fucking world. So they're all putting their lives on hold, waiting for 2012. Oh, the age is coming. Oh, the age of ascension. And you had motherfuckers, in case you didn't hear this properly, motherfuckers like David Wilcock telling people about this right up until the last moment, that there was going to be a big ascension was coming, and they were all going to be elevated to a new dimension. Well, this motherfucker was this dead-eyed, he looks like Tom Verlaine from television. Do you ever notice that? This dead-eyed, like John Boy Walton, vegan, whatever the fuck he is, going, we're all going to ascend to it, when he's not charging people to channel, what's his name? Some fucking god in India. Anyway, so he's there, right? And he's telling people that we're all going to go to a new dimension, a new world at 2012, December 21st. While the motherfucker was booking events and promoting events that were for 2013, and yet these muppets still go, David. Oh, David, he's so wise. He talks about spirituality. He's so wise, And it didn't happen. And they all went. That was the second psychic crash. So you had one. That was the first psychic crash. Was Occupy the second. So then you had a small amount of people in December 2012 going, "This is a lot of bollocks. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to fall for this shite anymore." And then you had other ones. What the cult wants. The ones who are disappointed will want an even harder fix the next time. Enter Anonymous, okay? Now, the Anonymous one was the seed that gave birth to Russell Brand. Think of the Anonymous mask, right, as a sperm. And think of, they're all knobheads, right? So think of all the knobheads all wearing the Anonymous masks, right? All these knobheads wearing the Anonymous mask. I'm an individual. I am anonymous. Expect me. Well, everything except the vagina can expect me. But anyway, so it's like these are sperms, right? That's what you see. Symbol of the Anonymous mask is a sperm, right? And so all the cult members in Anonymous with their little sperm heads, little knob heads, right? Yeah, cum heads, and they're all like, they're all thinking that they're all putting up their little picture of the mask on their Facebook profile page. Yeah, that'll teach the government. I got an Anonymous mask. I'll teach the fucking government, right? And That's why you have, you know, I was talking to someone tonight, Niall Murphy and Tom Secker, about anarchists at the turn of the century. These guys were blowing up and murdering aristocrats and bankers. What does the activist of the year in 2015 get awarded for? She sprinkled glitter. Oh, she's so radical and dangerous. She sprinkled glitter on the European Central Bank spooks. That's how lame it's become. So, but it's been getting lame for a long time. So we had the lameness of the anonymous knobheads now. Didn't know what they were on about. Basically, they were a fantastic asset for the intelligence services because all their hacking and destruction of personal privacy was exactly the kind of culture that the intelligence services wanted. So intelligence services wanted Anonymous to promote this idea that no one has personal privacy online anymore. Everyone can be hacked. Expect us. Expect us. See that? Expect us. So what you really was expecting was the DARPA or the CIA or MI5 on your hard drive. That's what Anonymous was really tending to expect. So all these sperms they're all these sperms, right? They're all out their anonymous masks going, oh, we are Legion, you know, we are Anonymous, and forgetting the fact that Guy Fawkes represented a bleeding Jesuit who wasn't blowing up the House of Parliament in order to save British democracy. He wanted to reinstall direct rule from Rome. So anyway, forget that. They're all morons. You don't think so? I got my anonymous mask. My sperm head. So all these millions of sperms, all these like millions of like Muppets, the sperm head masks, all walking around. One of them had to be born, and one of them was indeed born when Russell Brand in Trafalgar Square took the sperm off his head, removed the mask off his head, and was born the Christ child of the revolution. And there are photographs of him removing his mask symbolically in Trafalgar Square, and he's surrounded by all these anonymous knobheads who are literally shooting their load in their trousers by being around him. It was like Jesus coming back to Jerusalem and they scattered the palm leaves at his feet. That's what that was like. And so all the anonymous knobheads exploded. Russell Brand had gathered them up. This is after he'd been previously working on diamonds to the reptoids, and so he must be reptoid, dying. And so he courted David Icke, clearly repulsed by him. You could see that enough. There's a photograph of Icke with his arm around Russell Brand, and Russell Brand is like, get this maggot off me look on his face. And then David Icke was invited onto Russell Brand's TV show, mainstream. David Icke never saw a mainstream TV show he didn't love. And because, you know, that's what he is. And he went on there, and he was treated really badly by both him and which he was a fool for doing it, because it was very rude. David Icke is a fool for going on mainstream TV. If he needs to stay away from it, but he doesn't learn. He doesn't learn. He has to be valid. He has to get them back all the time. And so you know, he courted all that crowd on the David Icke forum. Russell is going to Simus, and then that was for his Messiah tour, and all the David Icke fans were all going to see Russell Brand's stupid comedy stage show, the Messiah tour. Now let's get back to the cult thing. Right? How do you know? One of the symbols you always can tell about a cult, a really powerful one, is that if you go to many of these cult websites, their logo or their cult name will be surrounded by a plethora of all the great, well, we shouldn't say great because they're all bollocks, all the symbols of all the world's religions, top religions. The Star of David will be there, the Om symbol of Buddhism will be there, the crucifix will be there. All these little symbols, they'll all be there. They'll all be embedded in the logo, just like Russell Brand embedded himself in all these New Age logos. He was a New Age cult. So that got up all the New Agers, all the New Age bimbo airheads, the most vicious and hateful ones of all, who attacked me, and so they're all in on the cult then now. They're all following the cult. On top of that, he deliberately made himself in the poster look like Jesus Christ, because there's nothing that controls the mind of a highly educated and an atheist more than anything else than the Christ archetype. Oh, but yeah, I hear you say, I'm an atheist. I'm rational. I would never be led by a Christ archetype. Oh, you dumb motherfucker. You absolutely will. Because that image has been so deeply embedded in your archetypal consciousness going back centuries and centuries that when that image is flashed in front of you, not even if you're a feckin' Bolshevik, you become intoxicated by it. Unless you're like me and an increasing number of people that might bring back the snake circle, you have decoupled yourself from Middle Eastern consciousness programming. But no, go straight into it. Now, on top of that, he also tries to make himself look like that mass-murdering banker, and of course he's tied up with the bankers, Che Guevara, a vicious Bolshevik murderous thug, a psychopath, who is basically the poster boy for every upper-middle-class moron in the English-speaking world. So he had it all. So he scoops them all in like a Christ Messiah, and they all go, we're all individuals. We're standing up against the political system. And he tells them not to vote. Do not vote. Don't vote. They're all the same. They're all the same. And so then they're saying, then they're not voting, okay? They're not voting. Then I jumped into the argument, and then I got fucking savaged for it. But that's life. That's what happens when you're unbelievably cool like me. Because I'm so much cooler than Russell Brand. Russell Brand is so uncool next to me. I told him that today. I left him a message, and I sent that to him today. And his Labour Party spooks did everything to suppress that comment. But he's not as cool as me. I'm way cooler than him. The only person that would think he was cool is some douchebag who wears an anonymous mask or carries his book and wears one of those Middle Eastern scarves and thinks he's a radical. Hello, my name is Chester Smedlington of the Cambridge Socialist Workers' Party, and I fully endorse Russell Brand to overthrow the aristocratic class system in this country once they don't cancel the Henley Regatta, and secondly, that Lady Elizabeth Jacinta Knox Fitzroy Hamilton is not able to shag everyone behind the boat lodge before coming out and calling everybody else a sexual misconductor. If her ankles are behind her legs and she's filled with every single known venereal disease contracted by a plethora of public school boys recently back from visiting, the House of Commons, she is still an innocent flower, and every single working class male, even if he has only had one sexual partner in his life, is a sexual misconductor. Yes, Lady Jacinta Hamilton's Socialist Work Party, and I both support Russell Brand to overthrow the aristocratic nature of this state. And that's what they're like. That's what it is, kind of motherfuckers you're dealing with, right? This is what they're like. Now, so it took them all to this point. The Occupy crowd have been brought to this point. The Obama change once been taken to this point. All the 2012 people, the ones who've listened to David Icke for years and years and years, telling them that there was going to be a big awakening, brought them all to this point, right? They're all behind Russell Brand. They're all there, along with the Alex Jones crowd. They're all there, right? And then suddenly, a couple of days ago, he drops the bombshell, which I predicted, that he tells everyone to vote Labour. Collapses. Bang! So they're all... You've got 50% of them who are like, what a douchebag. And the system doesn't want them because they know you won't do anything. You're so disgusted by all your faith put in this thing that you won't do anything else. You say, fuck it, and you throw your hands in the air, right? That's that one. The other 50% are going to go, Russell says we should vote Labour, so let's vote Labour. And the game is over. It's been won. So there's no chance of an awakening thing because anyone who has ever had a political awakening in the last 10 years, either through the 2012 thing, Anonymous, Occupy, Russell Brand, they've all, and even all the other minor, smaller ones like Edward Snowden and WikiLeaks and all this, they've all been brought to believe that there was going to be some kind of major payoff. There was going to be some kind of massive payoff, and it never came. And Russell Brand was their last throw of the dice. And they've thrown it. Now, this is what happens in the final stage of cult membership. The final stage of cult membership is when you, even when this has been done to you, you still follow the cult leader. That's because literally the neural pathways in your brain have been so wired towards external salvation and so corrupted against your own self of self-autonomy, independence, and personal monomyth that you no longer know how to take care and look after your own consciousness anymore. And you absolutely, like a member of a cult, you need that stewardship. You need that stewardship to keep you going on. Then, that's the point, they become psychotic. Because they're in the last chance saloon. They've decided, they had that last, after they were betrayed by the cult leader, they had that last dice in their hand, and they threw the dice, and they still crapped out. They still crapped out. And then there's no other choice here but for them to viciously attack, to viciously assault, destroy the people who point them out for they really are. Like all cults do. There's never a gentleman's kind of understanding that, well, he's entitled to his opinion. There's never a kind of a laissez-faire maturity or wisdom. Who cares what he says? We won't run a smear campaign. The cult member does not do that. The cult member can only justify their own stupidity by becoming a crazed fanatic. And so that's why I've subtitled this show, Survival of the Fanatical. Because the ones who are still voting and supporting Russell Brand are the fanatical muppets that every cult leader needs. The ones that keep them living in paradise. And so they got it. The rest are either too shocked, too disheartened, or too embarrassed to ever want to do anything again, so their activism has been completely destroyed. But there's others like who are like cult. See, there's cult members. This is why cult members never recover. They just go to another cult. I can guarantee, even on that that Scientology documentary Going Clear, I can guarantee that even the ones who've blown the whistle on Scientology, I'd say many of them have ended up in other cults, whether it be born again Christian cults or some other UFO or science fiction cult. Once the cults have even taken to that level in a cult, there's absolutely no way out. Your brain is so hardwired that you'll always be seeking answers because you cannot think for yourself. And the more highly educated you are, in a formal sense, like having degrees in college, the more easy you are to control because you're looking for someone to replace the college professor who told you what to think and do, so you get that little piece of paper. You're spending the rest of your life looking for that little piece of paper. So I spent, 3/4 of an hour talking about the Russell Brand phenomena. I hope you've learned something from this. Those of you who have been disappointed, I'm not knocking or putting you down anymore. Once you've said, screw him, he's a dickhead, and moved on, I don't blame you. Good for you. But I hope that you learn from this experience. I hope that you learn from this. Now, I'm going to keep talking for a second because I think I need to take a break because my throat is sore. I'm wondering if Paula has a song that she could play, anything, just for a couple of minutes while I take a little break here.
never what it seems. Static in my wildest dream makes my nightmares bleed. And radios broadcast the news of atom bombs and sophomore blues. I think we need a new life. When I can feel it coming, we'll never taste the sunshine. We'll never taste the sunshine again. Oh, and I can see it coming from a mile away, from a mile away. Your life's too short to chew the fat. Give it away and give it back. And all my friends are shadows, but we're too busy to notice the ghosts that float above us, singing songs we've yet to write. When I can feel it coming, we'll never taste the sunshine. No, we'll never taste the sunshine again. When I can see you coming from a mile away, oh, from a mile.
And welcome back to the Velocity of Now, me, your host, Thomas Sheridan. I hope you can hear me okay. We had a bit of a technical difficulty there. I think I know what this is a battery-operated mic, and if I go it again, I'll just be gone for a second to grab another mic. Thank you, Paula, for playing a song then while I was getting a cup of tea. And though I don't know what the song was, so I hope it was good. I was just realizing when I was away then, I should have actually played a song myself. And I just quickly, this is probably going to be applicable to the next segment of the show. There's a lady I know who's 14 years old, and why isn't Jimmy Page in prison? Sorry, the guitar's a bit out of tune. Yeah, why isn't Jimmy Page in prison? And Rolf Harris is. That is the question. Now, I'm not asking for Jimmy Page to be locked up, or I'm not asking for a witch hunt against him. Christ almighty, there's been enough of that already. But Jimmy Page, who at the height of Led Zeppelin had 14-year-old groupies. Now, that's pretty incredible when you think from the same period, Rolf Harris is locked up for years and years and years and classed a paedophile for doing the same thing at the same time. What makes Rolf Harris get that sentence and Jimmy Page gets the Kennedy Award from President Obama? That's an interesting question, I think. Now, like I said, I'm not saying we should go after Jimmy Page or anything like that. I'm just saying that why is there one law for one celebrity and one law for another? If you don't believe me that Jimmy Page had a 14-year-old groupie girlfriend, look it up yourself. He most certainly did, and possibly Robert Plant did too. Now, I posted a blog post today about about Rolf Harris, mainly after being contacted by some people who are trying to basically get justice for the guy. Now, I know what you're all thinking. I don't want the pedo. Well, I was looking over the Rolf Harris case recently, and basically, he shouldn't have even been charged. He shouldn't have even been brought into a police station, let alone brought to trial, and let alone found guilty, based on the so-called evidence they have. Now, I'm not saying he's innocent or guilty. I'm just saying his trial was bogus. And I know what some of you are going to be screaming out there, I want Pino to BBC. No. Just because, see, this is what I have to teach some people about witch hunts. You can't get caught up in witch hunts. This is I know that I know there are satanic child abuse cults, but that doesn't mean that everyone is one. That's why I go by evidence, and there was no evidence for, say, Hampstead. But they do exist. Just like there were sick pedos and there was Jimmy Savile at the BBC, that doesn't mean that every one of them were automatically guilty for the same reason. Now, I looked at the Rolf Harris case, and it is dodgy as anything. Now, I want to read this article today, and I'm going to extrapolate on it. It's on my website. If you go to thomassheridanarts.com and go to the blog, the article is up there today. Is Rolf Harris just a prize prisoner for the feminist and the crown? Right, and sorry about that, losing the mic again while I was reading the article about, the blog post I've written about Rolf Harris. We're all set now. Anyway, was Rolf Harris completely innocent? I honestly can't say so, because frankly he did not receive a fair trial from reading over the court hearings and evidence. In fact, I'm convinced that there was literally a price on his head mentality surrounding the case. So much so that it seemed as if the prosecution, jury and court officials had a brief to make sure he was found guilty. Sounds far-fetched? That something like this would actually happen? Tell that to the Birmingham 6, Guildford 4 and Maguire 7, all found guilty of being IRA bombers based on, once again, little or no evidence in a British court. The determining factor was anti-Irish hysteria in the media, which copper-fastened the guilty verdicts of these completely innocent people no matter what. Was the hysteria and hype surrounding Operation U-Tree any less visceral? Witch hunt in nature and satisfaction at any cost driven? similar to that of the IRA mainland bombing campaign of the 1970s. Yes, the IRA did in fact murder British civilians with bombs. Likewise, with Operation U-Tree, there was no doubt about the crimes and guilt of Jimmy Savile, who, by the way, never stood trial under the same system which found Rolf Harris guilty based on flimsy, if not bizarre at times, evidence. And that real sex crimes against innocent young people were indeed committed in the BBC. Is a collective witch hunt in this PC and feminist age any less wicked and psychopathic as they were back in an anti-Irish age in the UK back in the 1970s? The following letter was sent to me by a person seeking justice, which is not the same thing as being let off for Rolf Harris, which is certainly worth all our consideration depending on Her Majesty's justice system and the hysterical mainstream media who likewise protected Jimmy Savile to decide the guilt of a man based on unsubstantiated accusations from various dubious persons. Again, I'm not saying Rolf Harris is guilty or innocent, but I have no doubt he did not receive a fair trial and that his case is as much about a female-style feminist being used to destroy traditional male role models and family men. And there's another aspect to it as well, that Queen's portrait. I think Rolf Harris pissed off the Prussian royal family that rules England with that portrait he did of the Queen, because he painted her exactly as what she is and how she doesn't want to be seen. There is a distinct sensation of sneering malice in that portrait that he did of her. And these people have not changed from the day when Henry VIII chopped off their heads or they sent them to the Tower. These people are still the same beasts. And I have no doubt that that played a factor in Rolf Harris being sent down. He's also being retroactively punished for the Savile getting off. It's almost to say, well, we let Savile get away with it, and much, much worse. Remember, I believe Savile was a serial killer, and I've no doubt, like the Russell Brand and Labour thing, I'll be validated with that one day. That was also to throw the masses of bone to salivate. But also, it plays in with the whole thing of the shock doctrine that I was talking about, where they shock people to the point where they'll just believe anything anymore. It's interesting that this Rolf Harris stuff was happening around the same time that the Russell Brand thing was coming up. It was almost like at the same time they're demolishing the Britain of the past in order to bring in the Britain of the future. Destroying the traditional values of the past to bring in the new values. Now, the new values have nothing to do with the people or morality. They're to do with the political and business elite of the future. So I'm just saying that Rolf Harris was probably no saint, but does he deserve to go to prison for the same thing that Jimmy Page is considered cool for doing? Just let that sink in and have a think about it. Now, it's been a funny old week. There was a story also came out this week that beards are full of shit. Some stupid group in America whipped up a typical bullshit story that human beards contain more feces than a toilet. Of course, like every moron on the earth shared it, believing it. And that's, again, there's a very sinister thing to that as well. It's almost like there's two things to that. A chap called Dale, I think, pointed out that the reason why they're trying to get fellas to shave their beards because they're telling them they're full of shit is because all these hipsters and all the people wearing trendy beards at the moment. Of course, I had a beard before all that stuff was cool. That beards destroy facial recognition software. And that's a huge factor in this. Beards destroy facial recognition software. And that's what they learned from all the hipsters. And that's why they're trying to get people to take their beards off. And also, my friend Zita on Facebook also said that they can't make robots grow hair. They just can't make them grow hair yet. They can stick kind of hair on them, but they can't make them grow hair. And so, in the robotic transhumanist future, that's what we're heading towards. Sort of like blank, expressionless, featureless human beings. Kind of people that don't look like anything. There's no face there. Kind of like Nicolas Cage. Anyway, I was talking more about cults tonight and how all these cults all go back to the secret services to some degree. I want to give an example of how a cult was used, other than the Russell Brand cult, how a cult was used to bring in public policy, and that's the Westboro Baptist Church. Now I hear people going, them fuckers, them bastards, protesting at the death of American soldiers and calling them fags and all this stuff. Yes, that bunch. Now, people forget that Fred Phelps, the guy behind it, he was trained at West Point Military Academy. Bet you never knew that one. Try checking that out. And he had an interesting history, like so many of these cult leaders, before, shall we say, he was finally activated. Now, what was the purpose of the Westboro Baptist Church? Well, the purpose of the Westboro Baptist Church was to protest the funerals of American servicemen during the Iraq War in order to generate sympathy for the war cause. It was classic gaslighting. So if an American Marine or soldier was killed in that war for oil, most Americans were kind of disgusted by the war. They did not support it. Of course, a lot did, but there was plenty of liberal types who didn't, and intelligent ones. So in order to swing them around, they had to make them feel sorry for the people and the families of servicemen who were killed. Enter the Westboro Baptist Church. Now, like all cults, their main thing is to cause sensation and hysteria, smear campaigns, a load of noise, get themselves noticed in order to get people to join up, because they're basically doing a shotgun approach. And over the years, they had built up a whole bunch of mental cases and lunatics. And like all cults, the cult leader had married off the daughters who'd been raised to not be able to function outside the court, to the most pathetic and servile fanatics inside the cult. So there was basically had a perfectly primed cult fanaticism. Daughters who were raised to believe there was no life for them outside the cult, that they were betraying their parents if they didn't believe in their parents' cult things, and that they had to marry someone that they gave to them. And it was always a cult fanatic who's rewarded with the daughter of the cult leader as a sex prize. A sex prize. Because remember the fellas who join cults are pathetic losers. They've longed in their heart to be Luke Skywalker, or they've longed in their heart to be a knight or something like that. And they were just like, they'd no friends at school, they probably didn't get laid in college. And the cult leaders suss these things out right away. And they play on these unfulfilled Luke Skywalker, Agent Mulder, Percival, Lancelot needs in these people. And they play upon them. And they put them in a position where there's no other choice for them in this life, because they've burned all their bridges in terms of having them part of this cult and making them look crazy in the eyes of the rest of the world. And then they reward them by presenting one of their own children as a sex prize to the cult fanatic. The cult fanatic can't actually believe it's happened, but they've been rewarded. So they have a roof over their head, a job, you can call it a job, and a sex prize of a child that's been raised and brainwashed by the cult leadership in the middle. And, your man Phelps did this at the Westboro Baptist Church. So he had the perfect collection of fanatics and muppets activated to the kind of Charlie Hebdo attack level, that kind of crazed fanatics. And so they went down and he was probably called at some point. I'm sure he was. He was contacted by the DARPA, and they told him, "Okay, Fred, your orders now are to be activated, and go out and start protesting and calling, servicemen who've been buried or killed in action fags and things like that." And so they go out there and they do that. Now, this disgusts people quite rightly. They can't believe what they're seeing, and also they attack popular things like Jews, Catholics, and gay people as well. And they do things like stomping the American flag, all classic intelligence services briefs to do this. And then what happens then is the people who were against the Iraq war suddenly then have sympathies for the soldiers they probably wouldn't have had before. They probably would have said, "Oh, dumb idiots who just joined up to, because they couldn't get any other job." That kind of thing. Now they feel sorry for them. And so that's the first part of it. And also because of the Westboro Baptist Church, George Bush was able to bring in a whole slew of laws where you could not criticize servicemen serving in Iraq. So that was the psyop which they were done for. And this is why all cults are created by the intelligence service for the day when they're needed to attack sincere activists, to destroy their reputation, to try and do things like that. You can always tell a cult because they'll spend as much of their time attacking the enemies of the cult leader as they do anything else through what they might have, like they might call them like, alternative newsletters or news sites and stuff like that, which are just grooming things for the cult. And so there's so many similarities to these cults. They often have you can always tell when they've been set up by the intelligence services. There's always a kind of someone who's been trained either by the military in the sort of like the kind of parental level of it, either by the military or they have been a senior civil servant or academic, often in a foreign country, and they go to the United States thinking they're going to get a top job in a university. They only find out that they've been brought over from another country in order to be told that they're going to be leading a cult, a New Age cult and things like this. So you often find things like that. And you often find they have similar color scheme. Remember I said earlier on that they use the same symbols, the cross, the Star of David, the Om symbol. This is the cast the net wide. There's always a strong kind of a Christian thing as well. Like I told you about the Christian programming that all these people have who've forgotten their indigenous background, their indigenous upbringing, their indigenous archetypes within them. And on top of that, they always seem to have websites that are blue and white. I don't know if that's an intelligence calling card. The intelligence services often have calling cards to one another, but they always seem to have a two-tone blue and white website. I don't know why that is, but that seems to be, with all the flying saucer death cult and all the other kinds of cults, it always seems to be a blue and white website. Don't ask me why. It just maybe someone in the Pentagon came up with found out that people are more susceptible to a blue and white website on a screen. But that's the way it is. And the fonts will be a sans serif font for the headlines and a serif font for the text. I don't know why. It just seems to be that way. You look at them, they're all like that. I'm not joking. All the cult websites. And along with all the attacking people and all this kind of thing they do, to get attention, to make themselves look as notorious as possible. They don't care because they're cashing checks that are being given to them by the intelligence services. So the money always comes in no matter what. And all these lawyers they're able to hire, that's all paid for through the donate buttons and through the intelligence services checks they cash. In order to destroy meaningful activism. We're being attacked by a multi-pronged approach here. So that's cults would really be the theme of tonight's show, both the Russell Brand cult and other kinds of cults as well. And there's a very deep reason why we're like this. It's because we've been programmed for so long. But I know this is going to piss off a lot of Christians, but I don't care. But this kind of cult programming would have never been possible if it wasn't for Christianity. It's Christianity who has brought us all to this level, because it's Christianity that allowed the Middle Eastern monotheism to impregnate itself within the Western consciousness. One God, one king, one ruler, one path to salvation. And that gives us the Jesus archetype, follow me to salvation. Jesus Christ was the first cult leader, and all cult leaders have to do after that is model themselves on Jesus Christ. They're not like the European archetypes and gods, which are really representations or manifestations of the human consciousness and deep inside us. They're a very different thing. They're always about, instead of in the traditional European pantheon, all these gods represented unleashed or necessary aspects and archetypes of the consciousness that could be pulled out to get you through various aspects of your life. Christianity is, unlike all the theocracy from the Middle East, it's all about an external salvation with a God archetype. Now, I'm going to be appearing at the AV6 again this year. I've been asked back again at the Steventon Park Hotel in Daventry, and that's in Northants in the middle of England, and that's on the 15th of May to Monday morning, the 17th of May. I might actually do a tarot workshop on the Monday morning on the 17th before I go back to Ireland. But there's a great bunch of speakers, and it's a wonderful event, and it's not expensive considering all you get for it: the food, the meals, the lovely hotel room, and you get to hang out with all the speakers in a very relaxed comfortable, friendly atmosphere, and lots of lovely people show up as well. I just want to, before I close the show tonight, read out something that is very important for me at this point in my life, because this, what I'm going to be talking about at the show in Daventry, also one part will be about why the removal of water from the Irish consciousness is really an attack on everything Gaelic, because in Ireland the original term for water is Ishkebaha, which means the water of life. And water was sacred to the Gaelic people. It was sacred. It was beyond. It was a god almost in of itself. And this thing with Irish water, and even calling itself Irish water, is part of this psychic attack upon us. That's one aspect. But the other part of I just want to read you the brief from the event. And it goes, following from his research into the psychopath, serial killers, and the psychopathic control grid, Sheridan turns his attention to exploring the topic on a deeper metaphysical and spiritual level after a life-changing encounter with an African shaman. What started out as a study of mythological archetypes and spirituality soon became a fascination with the idea of human consciousness actually being under attack from a form of consciousness parasite. Along with consulting literary and archival sources, field and lab work was also undertaken in an attempt to determine if any evidence to validate the vast and remarkably similar canon of folklore proclaiming that humans are affected by non-material forms of consciousness that interact often with horrific consequences for mankind, something which many top scientists and engineers were attempting during the early days of radio and TV, often with surprising success and shocking personal consequences. All human mythology and spiritual prophecy is completely metaphorical and not a portrayal of literal events. The monsters, demons and scenes of cataclysmic folklore are not portrayals of earthly real-world disasters. They are indeed reflections of how the psychosocial battles actually take place within the domain of human consciousness. Are we in the Viking end time of Ragnarok? Has the transition to digital electronics opened up a pathological superhighway into our minds and souls via the possibility of a sentient Internet of Things? Are the cataclysms of toxic tidal waves and weather warfare described within the Ragnarok story happening right here and right now? Is Loki about to break out of his cage, and if so, what is our best defense? The Jin Dibuk infected and alien religions of the Middle East, salvation by the CIA MI5 created space alien channeling cults as part of their weaponized mythology to hide secret technology and black operations, propagandas by intelligence services funded contactee cults in Hollywood. Or do we, as individuals, tap into our European indigenous archetypes and unleash the Odin and Freya inside us all? This presentation will be a sensational culmination of Thomas Sheridan's years of study into how to construct a consciousness firewall around our bombarded psyche. And I hope to see you in a couple of weeks at AV6 in Daventry. That's again the Steventon Park Hotel. It's Friday the 15th of May to Monday the 17th of May. And the website address you need to go to is alternativeview, that's all one word, .co.uk. So that's it for tonight's show. Thank you for Paula and Neil and everyone else for letting the show run over a little bit later than usual, although it probably wasn't much later considering we had technical difficulties, which I apologize for. It's completely my fault. And remember, what have we learned this week? That there are cults ready to trap us all. They are personality cults. They are celebrity cults. They are flying saucer cults. They are channeling cults. They are comet debt cults. They are flat earth cults. They are Russell Brand cults. What you've learned this week and what you should have learned this week is two things. One, never, ever, ever again put your hopes in someone external to you as an individual. Only follow your own path. And two, feck 'em if they can't take a joke. Good night, and I'll see you next time.